Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, your Kings insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me, Fox 40, Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
I am fantastic, fellas. How are you guys? I don't really have anything whimsical to say.
We're a little worn out. And of course, we have Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. What's going on, Brenden? How are you?
I'm doing great. Hyped after the intro. I'm doing a lot better than I think the Kings record would lead people to believe. But yeah, doing all right.
All right. Let's start with this. Sean, you made a trip to the Bay Area, but you did not go to the Golden State Warriors Sacramento Kings Battle Royale, if that's what we would call this thing. I just figured I would touch base and see how it went going down to the Niners game and see my guy Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes looked like he was in pretty good form. I would say, Mecole, what is it? Mecole Hardman. He probably had he had a great fantasy day. So I think a lot of people who might not know his name going to the game, they certainly left Levi's Stadium certainly knowing his name. And he looked. That rematch of 2019 of that Super season. Well, the Super Bowl was in 2020, but that rematch of that Super Bowl kind of went the same way. You know, you had a nice little lead and you blew it. So the Niners just have holes all over the place, and you're trying to incorporate Christian McCaffrey, who, let's face it, they gave him about 20 plays, and I think they really ran about 10 of them or maybe 12 of them, and I thought he was impactful, and Jimmy G can certainly make a mistake, and it happened, but that defense really didn't look a lot like. But it's weird, like everyone just focuses on the quarterback, and if you're doing that, you're just lazy. I mean, look, you're 3-4. You were 3-4 last year. You're going to LA. Relax, just relax, people. Like, yeah, you shouldn't have probably lost to the Bears or the Falcons, but the reality is, this is your team. This is what your team does. And you know what? You've been to the Super Bowl. You've been to the Western Conference. You've been to the NFC Championship. So just get healthy. Get healthy. Get your guys back. And that can cure a lot. Like, was anyone really expecting, if you were before the season drawing out your wins-loss record, like 3-4, I'll take that after the season that they've had so far. I would have taken that. And I probably wasn't going to pencil a win over the Chiefs either. So...
yeah, I don't think you could. I wouldn't have penciled in 3-4 because you had teams like Atlanta, Chicago. What's the other bad team they lost to? Denver. Yeah, like they should have won more games. I mean, it's very clear why they went out and drafted a new quarterback last year, because and it's not that Jimmy is so bad. It's just you look at the other side. You go into a game with Patrick Mahomes there. And to win at the NFL, to get the ring, you're going to have a quarterback. And like, not to be disrespectful to Jimmy Garoppolo, but he can get you there. I don't think he can win it, especially in today's day and age. Yeah, this is the Niners beat.
Welcome.
Yeah. And of course,
Brendan, what's your Dutch Bros drink there?
Yeah. This is a Rebel. This is a strawberry Rebel. Whenever I hang out with my younger siblings, we just listen to music and go get Dutch Bros, and that seems to be before these late episodes a lot. People call me out for my Dutch Bros, but yes.
All right.
I can't believe we started talking about Patrick Mahomes, by the way. No player pisses me off more than Patrick Mahomes. I don't know what it is.
Why?
He's so agitating to me. It's definitely the year that the Niners were in the Super Bowl, and halftime, I think the Niners are up by a touchdown or 10 points, something like this. And the broadcast the entire time is Mahomes has him right where he wants him. And that pissed me off so much. I was like, the Niners are winning this game. What are they talking about? And will not let go of Mahomes. I can't do it. Just Mahomes agitates me too much. He came back and won, so I had to bite my tongue there.
Yeah.
Mahomes really agitates me.
We've had Mahomes on our fantasy team. I think this is our fifth season. Yeah, we're big Mahomes guys, although he frustrates the living bejeebus out of you. About 5 weeks out of the season, he just tricks off a game, and you're just like, man, what in the world just happened? How in the world did that, like, why? What? It's like he disengages, which is really strange to me, especially in the NFL. And then you look, and he's number 2 in scoring in fantasy, and he always is. And you're like, it doesn't feel that way, like all the ups and downs that you go through with him. Okay, so it's been a busy week. We haven't spoken since last Tuesday. So 3 games, all losses. The whole season's gone to hell in a handbasket. It's over. You might as well start, getting ready for the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. That's where we're at. But yeah, I want to start with this before we really hit the ground running. Number one, if you guys are, watching on YouTube Live, we've already got a bunch of people in here. If you don't mind, give us a thumbs up. If you don't mind, subscribe. We're almost to 2,200 subscribers on the YouTube, so that's cool. Also, if we didn't have a Thursday pod last week because the 3 of us were on an off the record with the Kings Beat virtual happy hour part 9, the analyst with Katie Christensen, which was pretty stunning. If you're missing out on the happy hours, man, are you missing out? And it just seems like every time you think that we can't get like a better feel in it, like a better happy hour, it happens. And hats off to Katie. She was like very, very open and honest, and I thought it was spectacular. I think fans who left that happy hour are now much bigger fans of Katie Christensen than they were before. She converted a few people, I'm sure, as well, that were on the fence, and just absolutely spectacular. So a big thank you to Katie. And for those of you guys who are premium subscribers to the happy hour, to the Kings Beat, you got like a really, really cool treat there. So become a premium subscriber. That's what I would suggest, because it's pretty cool. You guys, any thoughts on that without, talking about what we talked about on the happy hour, but any thoughts on Katie?
It wouldn't be the off the record happy hour if we spilled too much, but I think just kind of echoing what you said, she was very open, and I think that anybody there really appreciates that. Myself, I know all of us included, but I'm sure listeners there as well. And it's just always interesting to me for people to get more insight into the personalities behind the voices, personalities, and just people that are like just a normal part of their Kings routine.
Sean?
Yeah, I think Brenden just knocked it out right there, and that's exactly right. I've known Katie a super duper long time, and it's been it was great to catch up in that kind of setting. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Like, you really, as Brenden just said, you get to know a lot of the people. They have lives, and it's not always just Kings, And I think we show some of our personalities here, and we hope to bring some of those personalities to the happy hours, and those are always fun. And I always end up coming away with the same thing after every happy hour, which is I want to hear more from the listeners and the people who comment. I don't have to say that after this one, because I feel like there was a lot of meat on that bone, and it was. I tend not to talk too much during the happy hours, because I love to listen unless I'm asked or talked to. Like, I really just want it to be for the listener and really get to know a lot of either the guest we have on or the conversation that's going on. And I tried to do a lot more listening during those shows, and that was a good one to do so.
Yeah, it's different. It's really hard to describe. It's such a unique experience that, like, it was just a random idea that I had when I was building out the Kings Beat, that we would do something different. Just because, we have so many friends in the media world, and it's cool to kind of pull the curtain back and let you get to know them a little bit. Yeah, definitely worth the. That was almost 3 hours long. So people who don't know, like, they keep going, and we do not record them. Absolutely not. That's why it's called Off the Record. And I know people are like, oh man, I wish I could be there and stuff like that. And I get it, but at the same time, some of these things, I think it opens the door for people to get a lot more personal and really have a good conversation. And even there's been a couple of times where I think people forget that they aren't sitting there talking amongst friends, that they're talking, that there are people watching and listening. And I just think it's really, it's interesting. So
I also think, going back to what I said last week, the more we do these happy hours, I'm like, I can't wait to do one in person. Like, I think we can actually pull that off, whether it's an actual show that we're doing or honestly just kicking it with people that showed up and, answering questions or just mingling. I think that's the whole idea of a happy hour. And I think I look forward to doing that one day.
Yeah. And I'll just like, we're cruising along here on the pod. If you're going to be inappropriate and disrespectful in the comments section, I'll just drop the hammer on you.
But isn't that what comment sections are all about, though?
It is. It's one thing to be okay and funny. Yeah. It's another thing to be inappropriate. So I'm just going to make sure somebody knows out there that if you're going to be inappropriate, you're probably just going to get dropped here. So we'll move on. All right. So the Kings are 0-3. And where are you guys at? Brenden, you and I... We took the family truckster. We loaded in a couple of our friends and Frankie Carcelli and Chris Watkins, and I did like the dad driving to like a soccer tournament thing. We drove all down together on Sunday for the Kings Warriors game. Like, first of all, what was that experience being there at Chase and kind of catching a game live early in the season here? And watching realistically one of the greatest offensive teams the NBA has ever seen.
On a night where they went ridiculous on the offensive end on top of it. I mean, 50 points in a quarter, I think it was 89 in that first half, was an experience. Obviously, covering the team on the other side makes it a whole different type of experience. But I hadn't been to Chase Center outside of just the California Classic games, and obviously a regular season game is just going to be a little bit of a different environment. And I thought it was interesting. We got to see Coach Brown and Leandro Barbosa both get their championship rings prior to the game, so I thought that was kind of cool as well to witness that. And overall, I think there are good things to take from the Kings from these three games, but I think they just got to put a full game together. We definitely didn't see that in that Warriors game. That first half was pretty gross. But
50-point quarter.
It was horrible. It was really
89-point half. Pretty stunning. Sean, I guess we'll just start your takeaways from what you've seen from that game, but also just the 0-3 start. Again, it's kind of strange that we haven't had a pod since opening night, and so we do have three games that we could kind of break down, but I don't think there's a ton of reason to go deep, do a deep dive into like the Portland game, the Clippers game, just because we're a couple of days out. But what do you got for us on that Golden State game?
Yeah, I mean it's easy to see one of the most talented offenses in recent memory go up against a team that's playing little to no defense and have a field day, and that's kind of what it looks like. But I know Kings fans are definitely reeling and seeing an 0-3 record against some pretty solid teams. I mean, the Blazers are still 3-0, I believe, right? You got the Clippers, who are going to be a top team in the West, and so are the Warriors. I mean, at best, I had them 1-2 right now, but 0-3 doesn't surprise me. The fact that they've been in every single game for the most part, and I know you can kind of scoff at that with the Warriors game, but I think there's some. I know Coach Brown isn't big on moral victories or anything like that, but I think there's something you can take out of that and apply it. But you kind of move on. I mean, you knew it was going to be a tough stretch, and look around the league. If anyone's watching, I mean, look, you've got Memphis putting up 130 points tonight against, I forget who they were playing. Just
Brooklyn,
off the top
right?
of my head. Brooklyn, yeah, and they had 124. So these games are just really wonky right now. There's not a lot of defense being played really anywhere. So this is just part of it. They're going to start. I think everything that you're seeing on the offensive end is, for the most part, okay. Defensively is just where their troubles are, and nothing's going to ever go right 100% of the time with offense, defense, passing, shooting, free throws, all that stuff. You don't have a perfect game ever. That being said, like, there's always going to be things you can nitpick. The thing that just kind of makes me crazy is like how people keep it's come up in the chat here, and I'm not trying to admonish anybody, but it's a sample size of 3 games, and everyone's ready to just try to do these drastic changes. I am in the camp of, if you're going to play KZ Okpala 3.5 minutes, why are you starting him? That doesn't make sense to me.
I think that's over. We kind of got that vibe from Mike.
Yeah, and Mike said as much that that Keegan Murray started the second half, and we saw that happen before, where a guy came in the second half and started the next game. But again, I'm not freaking out over here seeing Keegan Murray come off the bench. I mean, Keegan Murray is the least of your problems. He's been fantastic,
Yeah.
Putting him in the starting lineup, they could go out there and they could win on Memphis, but it won't be because Keegan Murray started. Keegan Murray's still playing upwards over 30 minutes a game, whether he starts or comes off the bench. So to me, it's not the problem. I think it's just an easy thing for people to focus on. I think a bigger problem is, hey, Harrison Barnes, what the hell's wrong with you? What's going on? Why isn't this working right now? We'll
get to all of these topics, Sean.
You asked me, man. You asked me where I'm looking. There's no overreaction, but those are things I've seen. But at the end of the day, I don't think their problems are that bad. I really don't. You just lost to some better opposition.
Some veteran
Warriors
teams.
Game, right? And you've got a team like. Again, I'm not out here being the guy that thinks the Kings are going to be a 50-game winner, so I'm not surprised really by anything. I think the only one thing that surprises me is the fact that Portland has really got it together. And if that's a team that you had some question marks around, and again, it's only 3 games, we get it. But just look around, Utah's off to a good start. San Antonio's off to a good start. These are teams. Two of those teams you thought may not make the playoffs. So my point is, it's a small sample size to be sure, but those teams aren't necessarily playing poorly. So I think there's some people that might have written them off too soon, me included. But it's early season basketball. We're not even a week in.
Yeah, Brendan, we were talking about this. We were kind of going through the advanced metrics on some of this stuff. Defensively, the Kings haven't been that bad. I know people want to jump on and just say where their defense is so bad. Even I remember I was sitting next to Sam at the Clippers game, and he said something. He tweeted out something to the effect of Sam Amick, sorry, that Keegan Murray is a real deal, and the Kings still don't know how to play defense. And what did they give up, 112 or 114 against the Clippers? And in modern basketball, that's nothing. I mean, we're seeing again the 130-point night on Sunday, but right now the Kings are 20th in defensive rating, and again, it's a super small sample size. I think they were 19th just a little while ago, and then they dropped to 20th because someone else had a good night, which is what we're going to see. But I think, Brendan, that's where are you seeing the outline of something, or are you still oh no, I don't think I understand what I'm watching?
I mean, I like that Mike's expectation is, I think that we can be an average defense, is what he tells us. I like that it's not
an average to above average. That's what he asked for.
And I think that is a good goal. It is reasonable. And I thought that the Warriors game was just an absolute mess. That was just straight up horrible defense. No real two ways about it. The second half, they were fine. The second half, they were engaged. And I feel like maybe it's getting downplayed a little bit of oh, well, the game was already over at that point. The starters did play the beginning of that third, and I thought that the Kings played good against their same starting lineup that were just cooking them in that third quarter. The fourth quarter obviously was a lot of the bench before they pretty much just made it close enough that Steph had to work up a little bit of a sweat again. But I thought that game, they were just a little bit of a mess and not super engaged. Coach Brown pointed out a lot of times Kings were making baskets and then still pretty much getting beat in I don't even know if you technically call that transition, but transition on the other end, even after
it looked like transition. It did.
Yeah. And it shouldn't. And then the Clippers game, I thought they were the best. I thought the Portland game, it was just a lot of fouls that we've seen, that we also saw in that Warriors game, a lot of fouls. I think Davion Mitchell had 4 fouls in 5 minutes, and Terrence Davis wasn't far off with 3 fouls in 8 minutes, something like that. So many guys
out in the Warriors game too.
Yeah, he did eventually foul out. But I thought that Clipper game was the really good one. Paul George did put up 40, but I thought a lot of them were really tough looks, and they were showing him different bodies and in different coverages, and that was kind of just a star going off. So I think that it's been a good test. Even Portland, they're not solid defensively, but offensively is kind of where they're going to make their money, and we saw that in night one. So I think it's been good challenges. I think you see the blueprint for where they could be not horrible, but we've also seen sometimes where they do look somewhat similar to last year.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I'm going to point out that the Clippers game, they very specifically, they lost the game because they couldn't hit free throws, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. The Portland game, you can almost say the same thing. Like, if you would have hit your free throws, it would have been a much closer game. And we're not even, they missed 11 free throws in a 2-point ball game, a 2-point loss to the Clippers. And it's just unacceptable. I mean, that's a huge mental issue that we're seeing from this team early in the season, and it's really hurting them. Then we see them like all of a sudden hit all their free throws or hit a good percentage of their free throws in the Golden State game. It's almost like, man, did you guys just like think about free throws the whole time and not worry about like defending your man, like getting back? Like, it was really strange. Let's talk about Keegan. And like, first of all, like, he's played 2 games. The first game, when he put up 33 minutes, the second game, 38 minutes on the second night of a back-to-back coming off of COVID. Are you guys at all surprised at the sheer volume of minutes? And I mean, I don't think at this point we can be surprised about how he plays, because he just seems like that's who he is. And I think the Kings have stumbled upon a gold mine here with just like the coolest, like, laid back dude who walks on the court and just knows how to play the game.
I love Keegan Murray. Very
I love you, Keegan.
Much so. He is. I think it's a product of him being really good and really ready. And I think, like, I've been pleasantly surprised. I think we've known about like the efficiency. I didn't know that I was going to expect every single shot to go in, which is already feels like where at least I'm at this point with Keegan. And we'll see what ends up, how the shot ends up how it does or does not end up falling throughout the course of the season. But defensively is where I've been the most impressed. And it seems like it's been the same for Coach. Like Coach talked about when he came in, he thought that he kind of just viewed Keegan as a 4. And then at one point he's like, I don't know, maybe this guy can play the 2, 3, or the 4. And then he said last night, it was like, I don't even know. He's just a baller, I think was the quote. Yeah. And absolutely see it. Like, he's been phenomenal in every aspect. I thought his switching on to Paul George was fine. He had moments switching on to Steph. He did have a moment where he kind of got cooked, but it's Steph Curry. It's going to happen.
He got
but
shook.
I've been really, he did. It was pretty tough, but it was not far from the only one in that game. So I've been really impressed with Keegan, but I think to answer your question about the minutes specifically, I think a lot of it has to do with him playing well, but also the other wings on this roster. Like, it's just such a massive gap from Keegan to the next guy.
Yeah, well said. I mean, it's a lot to be excited about. Nothing surprised me when it comes to Keegan Murray right now. I think the thing that, if I had to pick one thing, it's his composure continues to remain even keel. He's a confident player. The moment isn't too big yet, and who knows, maybe that changes somewhere along in the season, rookie wall notwithstanding, when we could see what happens there. But the composure of him, I was at Stockton Kings media day earlier today, and listening to some of the players, I didn't even have to ask them about Keegan Murray. They just alluded to Keegan Murray. And it was funny because, like, De'Aaron, in a conversation I had with him just the other day, was kind of doing the same thing where he would allude to kind of him being wise beyond his years and fitting in very well. And it's not necessarily, even take away the feel of him on the basketball court, like just being a teammate, fitting in that way, and sometimes them having to bring maybe the fun out of him a little bit because he's almost like too grown or too much of an adult in the room, and that's a good thing for sure. So I think the composure is a thing that just continues to surprise. But what he does on the floor, I mean, if you watched, and I know sometimes college doesn't necessarily trickle into the pros, and we've seen plenty of examples to guys who don't, but he's doing exactly what he did at college. So this is a good thing. I like the amount of touches he's getting. I think he could probably even be a little bit more selfish on that end. Defensively, he's certainly added a lot of length and a lot of smarts there. So, yeah, I mean, again, I've been saying start the kid, but again, I don't have a problem with what they're doing because of the fact he's playing so many minutes, and I think it's good. I actually like him with some of the guys that he plays with. I think they've been impactful. I know even in practices, he tends to win more games than not. So that's also a good thing when they're scrimmaging. So I think they just don't want to mess with a good thing. And putting him into the starting lineup certainly will make some fans happy. It'll probably make some critics around the NBA happy as well. But I think Keegan's fine either way, whether he's coming off the bench or starting. As he always said, it's one will take care of the other,
Yeah, I'm going to say this. I think that it's time because he's shown that he's so good. I'm also going to say it's time because what I'm seeing right now is it's one thing to run KZ Okpala out there and say, okay, we got a guy who can, cut off screens and he can shoot the three ball okay. But no one is defending him on the three ball. No one is defending him at all. And I'm also going to say, I don't know why Mike Brown calls it the pink elephant in the room. It's just the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is you cannot keep playing Harrison Barnes major minutes if this is who he's become. And if you're going to go out there and run a starting lineup with KZ Okpala and Harrison Barnes as your starting forwards, you're going to lose every game this season. Just because... look, here's the problem. No,
Tuesday overreactions.
Tuesday overreactions. It's not every game, but you're going to lose a ton because Harrison Barnes has stopped playing. I mean, the dude shot one shot on Sunday. He's averaging,
and it was a lob he caught.
He's playing 7. I mean, he's scoring 7 points a game, but he's shooting he's 0 for 5 from 3. On the season, he's 0 for 5 on a team that's shooting 40.7 3-pointers per game. So what have they shot? 122 3-point shots. He shot 5. That's just unacceptable. And I'm going to tell you why I say this. I'm watching Domantas Sabonis get beat. They are just pounding on Domantas Sabonis. They're sending 2 guys and sometimes 3 guys at him to completely disrupt everything the Kings are doing. And they're doing that because they can. Because KZ Okpala and because Harrison Barnes aren't shooting the ball. So now you've got Fox and Sabonis with a little Kevin Huerter, shooting the ball, and that's it. And that's how your offense just goes to hell in a handbasket. And I know, a lot of people want to go out there and say, that Sabonis needs to be more aggressive. How much more aggressive can you be when you're trying to get through 3 guys to get to the rim? Because they're all standing in there because they don't have to defend anyone on the perimeter. So it's great that Herter's hitting his shots. It's great that Fox is hitting his shots. But, I think it's almost like Mike Brown has no choice. He has to put Keegan Murray in the starting lineup because he has to have somebody who's going to actually shoot the ball at the forward position. And I don't know if that's crazy or if it's Tuesday overreactions, but we've seen 3 games of Harrison Barnes, and we also saw 4 games of Harrison Barnes in the preseason where he looked exactly the same that he does today. And I think you're starting to have some concerns about what's happening there. And I don't know if it's a mental thing or if it's a physical thing. I don't know what it is, but for right now, how can you keep running the same thing out there, not expecting the same exact result in the win-loss column?
To pile on to this Tuesday overreaction, I mean, don't know if this is true yet, but he kind of looks washed.
Oh, stop.
Like I said, I'm piling on to this Tuesday overreaction, but I don't know what it is. It's I can't figure out what looks like is wrong with Harrison Barnes. He just doesn't look like he's moving right.
He's shooting 55% from the free throw line, Brenden. He can't even hit his free throws.
Down are crazy. It is 3 games. We've seen HB be up and down. Not actually. He's a fairly consistent player, but he has his moments where he's pretty low or pretty high. He started off last year really hot, and then he ended up evening out. So definitely not calling for sure that HB is washed, but it's something that I'm monitoring now when I didn't want to have to already be thinking about that.
Yeah,
Sean
I started off
there
no. I started off the whole conversation by calling him out. Like it's been bad. It's been unacceptable. But it's 3 games, and
it's 3 games.
Come on, this guy has been one of their better players, I think, over the past 2 years. Defensively, that's been another story. But so
the last 3.5 years, he's been one of their better players, Sean.
Right.
And I'm with you 100%.
It's and they need him. Like I said coming into this one, it's like of all the years, people would think they'd be moving Harrison Barnes. I was one of them, coming to the final year of a contract, and he's incredibly movable. I don't know what you're getting for him, but it's incredibly movable. But no, okay, Mark, no, it has not been 7 games. Preseason means dick. It doesn't mean a damn thing.
I agree, but I'm just going to tell you
stop.
The numbers look identical. That's the only thing that I'd say. Like if it was I
always felt like I'm like one of Harrison Barnes' worst critics because especially he knows I'm a Duke fan. He's North Carolina, but I'm always like, shoot the ball. You have to shoot the ball. Yep. You have to stretch the floor. You have to shoot the ball. You have to get to the free throw line, especially for a team that historically would not get to the free throw line. Now they have a better way of doing that. I think it's just a feeling out process more than anything. I haven't been told of anything that he's got anything wrong with him. We haven't really talked to him a whole hell of a lot either. So there's that. But yeah, I'm not really worried about Harrison Barnes at this point through 3 seasons. I do just want him to come to life. I want to see what looks more like Harrison Barnes on this team. Shoot the ball. And everyone's talking about the kids, Sean.
The Wilcox family.
We grow up fast. This is not right. I'm sure they watched The Run. They've seen a lot of worse shit on there. So
I'm sure that they've also watched an 0-3 start. I mean, their eyes are bleeding like everyone else's. And I'm not saying that the Kings are playing horrible basketball because I don't think that they are. But I'm going to make this.
If they're like any other fans, they're yelling at their TV as well, and they're cursing the hell out of them. So
yeah,
I think there's a lot of people, upset with this 0-3 start.
I think so. I'm going to make a couple of things. So first of all, he shot 2 of 16 from 3 in preseason. He's 0 for 5. So he's now 2 for his last 21 from 3. It doesn't make any sense because the guy shot 39.4% from 3-point line last year on 4.7 attempts per game. He is a very, very good 3-point shooter. This entire offense is predicated on 3-point shooting, and he's not either taking them or hitting them, which is, to me, it's very strange. And I don't think he's just getting left out of the offense because the second Keegan Murray steps on the court, he's playing the same position that Harrison is. He has the same opportunities that Harrison is, and he just looks like all right, I guess my job is to sit here and shoot 16 shots per game. So there is no, slowdown or anything else. So I'm really surprised by that. But I'm also going to point out that there's something that Harrison keeps doing every time we do talk to him. And it's that he wants to focus on this year and give this year's players an opportunity to not have the burden of 16 years of a playoff drought. It's something he brings up every time. These guys weren't here. Some of us have been here for a couple of years, but this is a new coaching staff. This is new. And he talks about it like he wants to focus on this year. And so I look at that and then I match up his career years, his 16.4 points and 5.6 rebounds or whatever it was last year to what I'm seeing right now. And I'm like, okay, well, if we're going to forget about the last 16 years, part of that means I got to forget about the player that you were before this year and then focus on the players that I'm seeing. And the players that I'm seeing, I'm confused by. I'm totally confused by what is happening with Harrison Barnes. And it's like Brenden says the washed word. I don't think that that's the case, and I have been a very, very staunch supporter of Harrison Barnes because of so much that he means to the team, off the court, in the community, all that stuff. What I'm seeing on the court right now is it's not the same player that I've seen for the last 3.5 years, and it's not the player that I've seen in the NBA for the last decade. And so I'm very, very confused. And again, this shouldn't be just like the harp on Harrison Barnes hour.
But
you got a rookie who's stepping up and doing the same, who has the same exact role, and he's having no problems doing it. How can Harrison Barnes play? I mean, he's only averaging 29 minutes a game because he only played 22 like Sabonis did against the Warriors. Before that, he's averaging like 34 minutes a game in the first 2 games. He can't come out of a game with 1 shot. That is ludicrous. He had 1 shot. I don't know what to make of it.
That's not even what bothers me with HB. Like, I think we'll move off of HB in a sec, but for me with HB, it's not the passiveness on offense, because I've just come to accept that. That frustrated me a lot last year, and it was talked about nonstop. We want him shooting 6 threes a game. Alvin wants him shooting 8 threes a game. It's not going to happen. Like, I've just come to accept HB is going to be a little bit passive on offense sometimes. He's a 40% three-point shooter for years now. He's a really good three-point shooter. Like, that's going to come back around in my mind. But if he's just like slightly open, he's probably going to pass it up to Trey Lyles, so Trey Lyles can take the semi-open 3 rather than him having a quick trigger, even though he's that caliber of shooter. Like, I think he's had fine cuts. There's been a couple times he gets up at the rim and throws it down, and I'm like, oh, that's Harrison Barnes right there. A little bit of athleticism. It's the defense, though, that is like really bad. And I think we saw the writing on the wall a little bit last year, and I feel like I'm stupid and maybe should have seen this coming even more. But like that Jeremy Grant possession at the very end of that Portland game sticks out to me a lot. I think Portland was up 1 under a minute left, and HB just got cooked by Jeremy Grant, drove right past him and won, and that kind of iced the game. Like, it's the defense is really bad. I think the offense will come back around. I refuse to believe that he just forgot how to shoot. I think it'll come back around. He's been a really, really good shooter for all of his career, but defensively, like, he's got to be better.
Well, and especially over the past 2 years, it's like, even though he hasn't been that defensive player, and again, no one has, he's offered so many other things to the game and to help with the success of this team, and he's been a part of their best lineups. So I get it. Like, it's certainly concerning, and that's why Luke Walton was the same way. He wanted Harrison Barnes to shoot the ball, and his teammates want him to shoot the ball. I don't know what happens. I mean, we saw Harrison Barnes have an unbelievable start to last year. I mean, he was sensational going all the way into really December on the offensive end, and he was scoring the ball, he was shooting the ball, everything was. And then he had one little setback, and it was like, where's HB been? And he disappeared. So,
Sean, I'm just going to add this: the last 3.5 years, 11.1 field goal attempts, 11, 11.1, and 10.8. That's who he is as a Sacramento King, and I think a lot of people are like, you're begrudgingly okay with that. You want more shots from him. He's averaging 6.3 attempts per game in 29 minutes. And again, like the last game, he shot 1 shot. And it's not even like, in order for this thing to work, he has to shoot. And that's just, there's no other way around it.
Unless there's, and I don't think this is the case. In fact, I know it's not the case, but I wonder what Mike Brown has challenged him in doing differently or providing something different. And those are questions that we'll probably have answers to at a later time. But I just can't wait for Brenden to maybe ask Harrison Barnes if he's washed.
I feel bad. Yeah,
you should take a lap.
But he's been like, I don't feel like I'm saying anything crazy. He's looked horrible.
Okay.
Sorry.
Let's ask for Harrison Barnes tomorrow practice.
You bet. I asked him for last practice. I wanted Harrison last time, because even after the game, I thought, like, I want to literally go, what the hell, what's going on? Hey, buddy.
And I'll tell you, he sat in his locker in post game on Sunday, doing what it looked like a long, extensive interview with Rick Bucher, and let's see how that ends.
Kings fans' favorite reporter, by the way.
Let's see how that one ends.
Let's see how well that ends.
Let's move off of this subject and onto the next, because I don't know how many good things we can say about De'Aaron Fox has been incredible. Has he won everything? Has he hit his free throws like you'd want him to? No. The free throws, no. Has he? He hasn't won the game for them, although he's got them all the way to the brink. But we're seeing it's, again, a small sample size. But after last year's start, I mean, he's averaging 31.7 points per game. He's averaging 7 assists. He's averaging 5.7 rebounds. He's averaging 1.3 steals. He's shooting 45% from 3, but 59% from the field. The defenses in the NBA are not playing that well at this point, but De'Aaron Fox seems to have he's having his like coming out party. What are your thoughts early on De'Aaron Fox? Not just on the offensive end, but I think he's been really good defensively as well. He's made mistakes, but like here and there, but I thought overall defensively he's been good.
His on ball hasn't been great. Team defense has been fantastic, especially weak side help. Really, really good. He's looking for a lot of moments, and he's even had a few of the chase down blocks that we love seeing from him. They're almost like characteristic from him at this point. But I think the on-ball defense is still a lot to be desired. I feel like this sounds crazy because after going back and watching, and again, I wasn't able to watch live because of our 49ers coverage, but going back and watching the Warriors game, the first two games, especially in the Clipper game, I felt like he became a little bit too selfish in that game, and I was even posing the question after, like, did he feel he needed to? Did he feel like he had to put the scoring load upon himself because the ball wasn't really moving as well as we saw in the opening game? And in Golden State, it was just a shootout. At some point, they just said, we're going to try and outscore the Warriors, and it's a reminder that there are other players, there are other teams out there that play that game a lot better than the Kings can. So I do feel last night was a better version of Fox, especially on the offensive end, where he's getting people more involved and finding the shooters that are around him and the way this team is built. So I think the Sabonis factor is still a little bit of a figuring out. But I think so far so good, especially on the shooting end. Free throws leave a lot to be desired, of course, but I like what I'm seeing there. It's just, overall, if I had to couple in the defense there are still some things that are questionable, but I do see him trying to push the pace a lot, which is great because so often I criticize him of not keeping his foot on the gas, and I think for the most part they've done a pretty good job of that.
Brenden?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I see what Sean is talking about on defense for sure. I think that on ball could be a bit better, but most guys on the team are going to die when they're running through a lot of screens, I think. I just think that we've definitely seen improvement there. There's more that you'd like to see, but I think he's been one of the bright spots defensively. Like Sean talked about his weak side help in rotations. I thought that's been really good. It's one thing that Coach pointed out prior to that Clippers game, I think it was, that De'Aaron had a really good rotation late. He actually missed it a play not long before that and then made the rotation the next time around. And then he hit a tough step back late in that game under a minute left right after that put them within one or two. It put him pretty close in that game. I think De'Aaron's been really solid there. And offensively, it's like everything that you would want from De'Aaron. You get the typical coast-to-coast breaks. I think he's been really aggressive getting downhill. He's hitting that mid-range and floater. And the threes, he's getting them up, and they're falling, and so far in these 3 games, a little under 7 attempts a game, 45% from 3. I think if there's any area to nitpick his offense, it would just be those turnovers, and that really was that Portland game where he had 8. And some of them, like, I don't even understand what happened, and I think De'Aaron kind of said the same. He just loses control of the handle. So I think that you can't – I think that De'Aaron has been everything that you could hope for and done everything he can in these games.
Yeah. Wasn't some of those turnovers were 2 of them offensive fouls?
Oh, I don't know. I think 4 of them were him just losing the handle.
Yeah.
And that's just not something he's going to do. Like, he could have walked us through them. I know he could have. But he was very frustrated with himself after that game. And, that is the one you can circle where he had a bunch of errors. But outside of that, for a guy who has the ball as much as he does, he turned the ball over 3 times in each of the next 2 games. I'll point this out too. Like, I was watching the end of the Warriors game and the way that the game was playing out, right? And so the Kings have that typical like crazy run at the end where like a lot of it doesn't really matter, but it does matter because it's showing that you're going to keep fighting. I didn't know this, but I guess the Golden State Warriors did this like 3 times last season where they just let their foot off the gas completely in the second half and lost after having one of those crazy first halves. And so there was a little bit of that, but they brought Fox back in the game, I think is around maybe the 8-minute mark of the 4th. And I'm like, okay, they're going to give it one last run here. And the thing that really impressed me about Fox is here we have this guy who's put up, 33 points and 36 points. And instead of coming in the game and being that guy and just trying to take the ball and trying to win the game because the other guy's got it close, now he's going to come in and close. I thought he played within the flow. I thought he looked for his teammates. He got up to 10 assists. I thought that's when he came in the game, he settled in. He was more of a decoy than anything else, but I thought he also, he broke the defense down, got his teammates open looks. And to me, it was like a maturity moment for him where he didn't come in and just try to win the game and try to be the hero. He let Malik Monk continue to do what he was doing. He fed Herter for a couple of shots. And so that's one thing that I would like to point out that, I think we saw some growth in that area. And whether the game was, ever going to get that close or not, I don't know. I mean, they did have a shot. Malik Monk and Kevin Herter both missed wide open threes that would have either tied the game or brought it within one late in the game. And I thought that was interesting, but I never thought that they were going to lose the Portland game until they lost it. I never thought that they were even going to win. It felt like they were going to win the Portland game. They were up 10 with 5 minutes left.
I knew that. I felt they were going to lose that Portland game after they blew them out in preseason.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Watching the game,
Portland,
in
Portland
the game,
team looked completely different. Different. You could tell they wanted to upset opening night in a major way. I didn't know they were going to go off and win 3-0, but that might be the best thing that happened to Portland in the way that they've began the season was to really get embarrassed and like they did in that game because they essentially quit that game after about 4 minutes into the third quarter.
I think Portland went 4-0 tonight.
Yeah, did they win tonight? Yeah.
Yeah, they won again tonight, so they're going 4-0. Again, I'm not going to worry about the 0-3 for the Kings, and as much as I'm not going to worry about the 0-4 the 4-0 for those guys, or the 3-0 for Utah, or the 2-1 for San Antonio. I'm not going to be concerned about that at all because at the end, these things will all shake out. Brenden, did you see what I saw with Fox, or am I crazy?
I don't know that I keyed in on it as much, but I do think that he's done a good job of getting other people involved. I don't think there's any ball stopping going on throughout the course of him getting his buckets or anything. And I don't think he's ever really been that type of player. I think that maybe there were moments that it looked that way with Tyrese, but they were just kind of taking turns in a way. And I think just the function of them trying to function alongside one another made that look weird. But no, I think that to your point that De'Aaron's been really good about making sure all of his teammates get involved and has made some really nice passes. I think he's always, or maybe not always, but at this point in his career, he's a really good passer. So I think that as long as guys are taking and making shots off of that, he should be pretty good at setting other guys up, hitting the paint, and then kind of crashing defenses from there.
I'll throw this to Sean. The Kevin Herter thing, I think we all thought when they traded for Herter that this was going to be a really good fit next to Fox. He shot 3 of 14 against Golden State, and 2 of those shots came in the final 3 minutes, including his lone 3-point shot. So my point here is that he shoots 1 of 8 from 3 in that game, and Fox shot 1 of 6 from 3 in the Warriors' loss. But with that 1 of 8 and it being a small sample size of 3 games, he's still shooting 48% on the season from 3, which tells you how incredible he was in the first 2 games. Just, is Herter everything you thought he would be, or is there more, or just where are you at with him?
No, I think he's fantastic. In fact, even defensively, I've really been a fan of Kevin Herter. We all know what he can do with the ball. I love how quick he can get his shot off. I think the Warriors really kind of showed what the blueprint on how to, you have to rough him up. You got to get in him, and you have to really make life uncomfortable for him. And I don't remember. I'm just trying to think back too. I only watched the game once, but I only remember 1 open shot that he had, I think, all night. There was always a guy in his face, it felt like. So, yeah, I mean, I think Kevin Herter's been exactly what you want. Somebody who can, he's much better as a catch and shoot, but he can create his own shot. He can make things happen a little bit, and I particularly like what he does on the offensive end. I love his little weak drop off pass where it's here he drives right into the paint or a little bit right of the free throw line, extended, and he just has this dump off to either a cutter or somebody who's on the 3-point line extended, and it's really fun to watch because it typically usually becomes an assist. So Kevin Huerter's been fun to watch. I don't really know if there's another level he can go to. I mean, he's certainly not a playmaker like Malik Monk is. Like, Malik Monk is really capable of running an offense if you need him to. I don't think that either one is desirable, but the way Davion Mitchell is kind of, when he was in foul trouble last night, you kind of saw a little bit of the best of Malik Monk in that regard. So I don't know that you would see Kevin do that role too much, and I think that's exactly why you see Kevin as your starting two guard. His shooting ability and the defense that he brings, that's why he's in that starting rotation.
Brenden, what do you got on Red Velvet?
Yeah, I might fight back a little bit on the playmaking. I do kind of think that he's on par with Malik, and I've been pretty impressed with Malik when it comes to playmaking. But again, neither one of those guys I think are ideally running an offense. But yeah, I think he's been as expected. Even the nights that the shot's not going down, that Warriors game that you pointed out, James, he hits the one that really I was going to say that mattered. I mean, they all mattered, but the one really late in the game when he's 0 of 7, I think, at the time, and he gets a big one to go down that makes it seem like maybe they're going to have a chance. And he's getting them up at a pretty good rate, 8 in that game against the Clippers, and then against the Warriors in that game against the Clippers, he goes 5 of 8 as well. I don't have the Portland one in front of me, but I know he put up a lot of threes in that one as well. And I think just his gravity is so important for that offense. He can make plays from there, attacking closeouts, but he's a couple steps behind the 3-point line, and he can catch and shoot and pull from there pretty comfortably. Defensively, I think that there's some things that need to be cleaned up, but not any more or less than a majority of the roster. Like, I thought specifically that Warriors game, he was pretty bad in that first half, but probably can say that for everyone when you gave up 50 points in the quarter.
Who was good? Who was good?
Exactly.
Yeah, there wasn't anyone that stood out there in the first half. On the season, Huerter 16.7, 3.7 assists, 3.7 rebounds. Here's a couple of tallies that I really like to see. He's averaging 2.7 free throw attempts per game, which is 2 more than his season average last year. He's only shooting 75%, which is fine. He'll get that up. But the other thing is he's averaging 8.3 3-pointers per game and shooting 48%. I mean, he's shooting 48% from 3 and 45.7% from the field. What's Sean?
James
laughing at the
loves his
sample
stats,
sizes?
boy. No, I'm like, yeah. I mean, we're like going
it's a
through
small
these
sample
stats
size
after 3 games. Like, it's really
No, but I think it plays to like the conversation about, number one, him needing to shoot the ball, the 3-point shot. Number 2, like, if we looked at his weaknesses coming into the season, it's like, man, you cannot shoot like 5.5 threes per game. We need you at 8 or more, and you're seeing it. And then also the free throw thing. Like, look, I've said this before. If I'm going to beat on Buddy Hield for 5 years for shooting 1 or 1.5 free throw attempts per game as your starting shooting guard, I'm going to do it with Huerter as well. Like, Huerter came in as a guy who doesn't like contact, and if he's going to shoot 0.7 free throw attempts per night, that's tough. That puts a lot of pressure on your teammates. That it doesn't stop the game and give you a breath. He's got to do more, and I'm glad that he is. And even if he's around the 2.5 to 3, he's going to be really, really good this year. He's going to average 17, 18 points per game when it's all said and done, because if you get those 3-point attempts up and he's hitting 4 per game, and you get the free throw attempts per up and he's hitting at least 2 per game, that's a lot more opportunity than he had in Atlanta over the last 4 years. So I think it's definitely something. Sean, you brought up Monk. This was the first game we saw Monk look like Monk, the Golden State game. 16, 8 assists, 7 rebounds. I think I'll even point this out. What Brenden talks about when you were saying, hey, I think Huerter's a really good playmaker / passer as well. But it's kind of like, what is form over function? One of them is slinging the ball all over the place, and the other one is more like within the flow and within like play sets. So Herder clearly is more of a pick and roll, like very specific type of passer, where Monk can really change the energy in a game by slinging the ball around. He'll make more mistakes, but I think we got to see Monk break out of his shell, and it plays into a larger discussion that the Kings have like a group of players between Harrison and between Malik, between Davion and who's the last one? Why am I drawing? Oh, Richaun Holmes, that really haven't shown up in the first 3 games, or they had like one guy will have a game, and another guy will have like a little bit of a game. But this was the first time we saw one of those guys really jump out. And I think Richaun Holmes had a decent offensive game as well. But I think this showed people what Monk can do and what the team can look like when Monk is playing the way that, we've seen him play in the past.
Yeah, I want to see him. I want to see him push, and I like him as a playmaker. I really do. But he's the one guy on the team that I want to be like. I know people focus so much on scoring. It's crazy because right now Mike Brown is asking people to play specific roles, and I think there's a figuring out process that comes with that. Especially when you have a player like Sabonis who is used to having cutting and motion and around him and not just stopping and watching him. And with Malik Monk, it's the one guy that I'm not worried about because when he gets on, I want to see him push, and I feel like his pace is great. But he's the guy also that I want, like, if you're going to pull up, do it. He's the Vinnie Johnson on this team. He's the guy that I fully expect to be 6-man. If you were a good team, you could be in conversation of 6-man of the year. You need to double down on that career year that you had last year and just absolutely pull up and shoot. You've got free range, do it. And through the first few games of the season, it hasn't really been there. And I know I don't take too much out of preseason, but in preseason it looked wonky too. His shot was nowhere to be found. And so I think there is an adjustment that's coming with him. Hopefully, as bad as that Golden State game was for the team, hopefully it unlocked something with him because I think he can be so valuable. And I really do feel like that dude should be the Vinnie Johnson microwave role on the Kings.
Yeah, Malik talked about after that Warriors game that he kind of expected there was going to be a little bit of a learning period with just a new roster, new coaching staff, and just kind of implementing a new offense and defense. And I think we've kind of seen that. I think that could be a product of what we're seeing with HB and some of these other bench guys that we're talking about as well. So I think that I don't make too much of Malik looking pretty poor in those first 2 games. I think he's somebody that sometimes he's going to be really frustrating out there. And then there's other nights that he's going to pretty much go out there and carry your offense and win you games. And I think he's just kind of that type of player. Like to Sean's point, I think that he's a guy out there that I want putting up kind of sometimes maybe not want sporadic shots, but I think he's the one that you're just going to forgive more often, at least from my point of view, because he's shown an ability to make tough shots. And there's a lot of value in that. I think that defensively he could maybe it wouldn't hurt to get up to a little bit more comfortable maybe with the defensive rotations and kind of schemes that they're working with there. And I think that he obviously doesn't have great physical tools when it comes to defensively, but if he can just not be a liability there, because teams have been attacking him a little bit on that end, I think offensively he definitely provides a lot. And I've been really impressed with his playmaking. He's just going to be a guy that sometimes shots aren't going to go down and sometimes they are. And those are going to be vastly different nights because he's a tough shot taker and maker.
Yeah, I mean, the Kings this is a valuable weapon to have. And someone brings up Bobby Jackson in the chat here. What is this? Pasta of my domain. Of my domain.
Great name.
Yeah, that Monk is definitely more the Bobby Jackson category. I totally agree. And I think that's like the Kings need that type of player. And then when I look at what's happening right now, I think Davion is really, really struggling with trying to figure out how to play next to Monk because he hasn't really done. He didn't play with Fox a lot last year, and they're asking him to play off the ball a ton, and Malik sort of take over the lead guard role. But I'll also point out, like if I told you like a week ago that we're going to get 3 games into the season and I'll give you 3 guards, and you tell me who's going to be the best one. And I said Monk, Davion Mitchell, and Terrence Davis. There's no way we would have Terrence Davis as the best of the 3. And he's been the best of the 3, surprisingly. And I didn't even think he'd be in the rotation. I thought he was in the rotation very specifically because Keegan wasn't in the opening game. Then all of a sudden he's in the rotation and he's earning minutes and he's changing the way we're seeing Mike Brown sort of coach and go to small ball lineups more often. Just where are you guys at with, I guess, more the 3 of them and how you figure out how to play all 3 of those guys and work all 3 of those guys into the system?
I think that TD is the most obvious, easiest one to fit. I think that his play style is just an easy kind of plug and play. He's been solid defensively, too handsy at times. He really got in foul trouble, fouled out of that Warriors game, like we mentioned. But offensively, I think he just kind of gets things within the flow of the offense. And that's the reason I tend to say that he's the easiest fit. Now, I don't know necessarily that means that he deserves the most minutes. He has been the best of the 3, but I think that Malik, like we talked about, sometimes he's going to take and make tough shots, kind of take the offense into his own hands. I think we've kind of seen Davion doing the same thing. Obviously, you get what you get with Davion defensively. That is phenomenal on-ball defense, isolation defense on opposing guards. He's ridiculous there. That play that he had, I think, against Portland at the end of the first or second quarter, the end of one of those quarters where he's diving after loose balls, it's just prime Davion that gets the crowd pumped, the entire team pumped, and that's the culture-setting stuff that's so important. But offensively, I feel like he just, when he's out there, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's happening within the flow of the offense. It feels a little bit like he's looking for his own shot and forced. And it's just been, he doesn't look comfortable in this current offense to me.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm still trying to wrap my head around Davion a little bit because I feel like his, again, I think a lot of the different roles that are taking place, James mentioned having the ball out of his hands. I just want to see more of it. He got into foul trouble, and I think it just completely disrupted what he did last night. So I think last night's a little bit of an anomaly. But with TD, I was trying to remember. James was asking us a question, and immediately my mind went to the factor cap that we had on Terrence Davis, and I couldn't, for the life of me, remember what it was. But I think we all picked against him in whatever
to be in the
category
rotation.
It was.
I think it was to be in the rotation. Yeah.
Is that what it was? Yeah. I
don't know, Brenden, what do you got?
I don't remember.
Thanks, Brenden. You're not keeping track of this stuff.
Damn it, Brenden.
Jesus, Brenden. No, I will say, just the fact that I still also have in my, the thing I do remember is talking to Terrence Davis the day, it was 2 days before media day. And, he reminded me of people he's beat out before and all these different situations, and very resilient character, very resilient player as well. And the fact that he's just healthy again, has this wrist injury, he's gone, and he reminds me, I'm cooking right now. He's I wish you could see all these. I'm cooking right now. You should see me shoot. I'm cooking right now. And it's okay, how's your defense? So it's Mike Brown and
Sean.
I know, but it's the same thing. It's the same. You got to hold everyone on the same level, right? It's just
I agree.
Your defense. It's all Mike Brown. He wants to know how you're doing defensively. So, yeah, I mean, if you can shoot the way Terrence Davis can, and we know how streaky he can be, it's different than Malik because I shouldn't even compare the two, but last year we were having a conversation about how Terrence Davis should fit that role. Now you spring forward a year and it's no, Malik Monk is better to suit that role because of his playmaking ability, in my opinion. So his way to drive, he can get into the lane naturally, whereas TD almost has to stand out on the perimeter a little bit more. And boy, that putback dunk, by the way, the other night, if you didn't see that, that was pretty fantastic. And screw that ref that correctly labeled that a technical. What's that?
The no fun tech.
Oh, the no fun tech. Yeah, that was
he took that really hard too.
He did it. Oh, he did. He was sitting there. He owned it. I didn't think he was going to go there, James.
Yeah.
I asked him. I says, what's going to haunt you the most? And I was thinking strictly gameplay. Yeah. I didn't know he was going to go right to that technical because it was totally the right thing to go to. He held himself accountable and he totally owned it, and you could tell he was bothered by it. But
yeah, I didn't load it. I didn't load that video clip in. He was like almost distraught over the fact that he got a technical, because that put them within. Did it put him up one? And then the technical brought it back to a tie, or so. It was like super close, but he was very, very upset.
I
with
still
himself.
think they were trailing, if I'm not mistaken. Someone in the chat will know, but that technical made it either a 3-point game or a 4-point game, and I can't remember which. I want to say they were trailing, but
he even said in that technical, he didn't say a word.
No, it was
that's
all
where
taunting.
that's where it's hard. Like he was pumped up, and I'm not. It put them up 2. Yeah, there we go.
And it was they did go up 2. Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking, and then they came down. They hit the technical, and then it all spun out after that.
Well, and here's the thing, but like the other part about that is like it's taunting, and I get it, and the referee, it was the no fun tech, we get it, but it was also the right call based on the way the game, like it was the right call. But I'll tell you this much. If that's not Dame Lillard laying on the floor and that's like, I don't know, random ass Blazer laying there, it probably doesn't get called.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
And it wasn't, sorry, Oba, it's not the worst call. It's just unfortunate because, again, that referee did his job. You're not supposed to have these taunting. They don't want that. They've taken it out of the game. And as much as I hate it.
Keegan Murray.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they want everyone to be Keegan Murray.
Yeah, we all can't be Keegan Murray. Just
what
sit
would
there
Keegan Murray do?
Yeah. That should be an entire segment on the show. What would Keegan Murray do?
He would have helped Dame up. He would not have called him. He would have dunked on him. He might have looked at him, but he would have helped him up and helped him across the street as the senior citizen that he is.
That's horrible. Sean's now throwing shade at Dame Lillard.
Sorry.
He's gonna write a rap about you, Sean. He's gonna like hit you hard in his bars. Yeah, that's right. A diss track on Sean.
No smoke my way. I don't need that.
That's right. Hey, if you're still in here watching on YouTube, if you don't mind, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. There's 165 people in here still right now.
How many likes do we have?
I don't know. I never have the YouTube channel up.
James, maybe we're just not that likable.
Trust me, we're doing just fine. Like I've seen some of the local sports shows, and we're doing just fine. It is what it is.
Boise, I do say sorry like a Canadian because I find it funny.
Yeah,
Canadians. I feel like if you do a Canadian sorry, it sounds much more apologetic. So you say sorry or you say sorry. Sorry just really makes it
sorry.
Really
sorry, HB.
Yeah. Okay. The last one that I had on that list.
To bring him. He has to bring him a fruit basket or something. Brendan did the most.
You might need to bring like a box of cookies.
He is washed.
Donate to his charity. Do something. That was mean-spirited.
That was mean-spirited. Okay, so I lumped him in earlier, but we didn't really bring it up. Richaun Holmes is on that list of guys that just have looked out of sorts, and then offensively, he looked much better against the Warriors, but that was against James Wiseman, and Wiseman absolutely tore him up. Like, is it just me, or does Richaun, I don't want to say he's struggling to, but he looked like he hasn't fully, like, grasped the pick and roll style that Mike Brown and his defensive squad is doing. Is that just me? Because it felt like they were running downhill and Wiseman was all over the rim. Like, it's like, holy cow, like how is this happening? This is a kid who hasn't played hardly at all in 3 years.
They haven't looked good. They just, Richaun is a guy, we talk about roles. I mean, he's really trying to figure out his roles, his role with this team. And I'd like to just see him run and fly through the air and dunk and do what he does and still be that heart and soul of the team. And it feels like that's not there. And he's so, he really wants to bring that back and kind of remind people. He's had a few moments. I don't really, again, I'm not taking too much out of these first 3 games, but I think it's just a lot of people really, you're filling out a system. There's so much attention to detail. I don't think the rotation is set in stone. I think a lot of guys are really trying to figure out a new role that they're having to play. And Mike Brown has been so big on that. But there is, I think it was De'Aaron the other day when I don't remember the question I asked, but he was talking about how looking at the schedule ahead and just how this is going to be a tough schedule. We all knew that this was going to be tough. And he talked about how they're looking at it in 5 to 10 game increments. And I don't know how they review their film, what they're holding each other accountable the most on, but there's going to be, once you get that sample size to 10, 15, I think things will have a much cleaner look to things. I think they're going to struggle in a lot of various areas. And again, part of that too is, I've said this last year too, but I still believe it with this team, that at their best, if they're a 500 basketball team, well, that still means you're seeing Jekyll and Hyde sometimes from one night to the other. Not necessarily as bad as we might have seen it. You know, when you have turnovers one night, you don't have it the next. Free throws are a problem. You don't have that problem the next. It's just weird which area might be your deficiency each and every night outside of defense.
Yeah, Brenden, have you noticed anything that like stands out? I mean, to me, I think the one thing that really is kind of surprising is that Holmes told us before the season started that him and Sabonis have never played together really in practice. They played against each other nonstop, but they've never really played together. And we've kind of seen it like straight up 34 minutes for one guy and 14 minutes for the other. It's hard to get a rhythm in 14 minutes. It's hard to get comfortable when, again, you're playing with new teammates. Like almost everyone that he's playing with in the second unit is a new teammate. Even Davion, he barely played with last year because of injury. But like, what are you seeing from Holmes?
I think the offense is an adjustment. I think that he's a big that's really efficient in the pick and roll, and we're just not seeing that often. Like sometimes within the course of their offensive flow, it will practically get to that. And I thought it was really encouraging, at least offensively, what he did in that Warriors game. Just nice to see him just getting set up by some of the guards. I thought Malik specifically did a really good job setting him up for easy buckets. We saw him attempt one of those push shots finally. I don't think it went down, but it's a little crazy to me that third game is what it takes to see like that patented push shot that used to be just bread and butter for Richaun Holmes. Yeah, happening all the time. So I think just having him decision make with the ball in his hands is a little bit of an adjustment for him, and honestly not utilizing his strengths amazingly. So I think just there's an adjustment period offensively. Defensively, he's been really bad, though, to the point where it has me questioning, like, okay, do I not understand what their coverage is supposed to be? Because I swear Richaun just let that guy walk right past him.
Well, I think, too, is like him and Sabonis both would benefit a ton from having a rim protector. And I know that's weird to say when you've got a guy like Sabonis who's practically 7 feet and, Richaun not that far off, but neither one of those guys is rim protecting. So I think that is going to impact them similarly, and because neither one is that guy. Like neither one is a fantastic defender. Sabonis is adequate, I guess, if you're being really nice, but Richaun hasn't really been a great defender over the course of his career. But team defense should be able to help him a lot more, and it hasn't yet. So, especially when you're only playing 14 minutes, that's going to make it tough.
I thought his contract here, he was a good defender. Like I thought he defended the perimeter well. Like looking at his advanced stats in his contract here, the 2021 season, he had an offensive rating of 114.9 and a defensive rating of 114.6. And on a team that finished 30th in the NBA in defensive rating, he had a net rating of 0.3, plus 0.3. I thought last year he struggled. So far this season, his offensive rating is 105.3. His defensive rating is 114.7 for a negative net 9.4 net rating. But his true shooting is through the roof. His rebound percentage is right around where it's been. Maybe his defensive rebound numbers are a little bit lower. I don't think he has an assist on the season, which is probably an issue because that's kind of where they're running it. But I'm also going to point to a lot of things that are happening where if you don't have proper spacing, which the Kings do not have proper spacing right now, it really eats into what a guy like Richaun Holmes tries to do. And the same thing with Sabonis. You're trying to run all these things through Sabonis, but he's got guys draped all over, multiple players all over him the whole time. And I have no concerns. I know some people have been concerned about Sabonis. Man, Sabonis just put up 19 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 or 6 assists, and he played 22 minutes. He played 20. No.
Not worried.
No, I'm not worried at all. I'm not worried at all.
Stay healthy. That's your worry.
Yeah, I asked him, I said, man, it seems like you're getting beat on every single night. He goes, he's like, that is my entire career.
Well, yeah, and it has. It definitely has. I mean, that's every place he's been, every scenario, especially when he's like such a primary option. That's the strategy, is to absolutely make life uncomfortable for him, and they do a good job. In fact, was it the Clipper game? He was getting absolutely pissed. He was so upset. I thought he was going to throw a ball. I mean, he was really upset, and you sometimes, maybe that takes a moment, like to bring in an Alex Len or whatever, in just spurts, as well as I don't think that's going to save the day or anything, but you almost need someone to come in with 5 fouls and be able to
hit somebody,
set a hard pick, and it could disrupt your offense a bit, and then it was funny. I mentioned I was at Stockton Kings Media Day today, and had a nice chat with Nemi and Nemias Queta, and I was like, man, they could really use a rim protector right now. And he's like, I know. I've got to keep, he's talking about everything the right way. He's going to be playing games with Stockton, which is something he didn't really play a lot last year. And, they think the world of him. Bobby Jackson was saying just how much talent that they feel that he can provide. And I hope that when he comes up this year, you'll be able to see some playing time in actual situational moments, and not just something where it's it's a blowout and you're getting him in just to get some burn.
I would not be surprised at all to see Nemias Queta be a G League All-Star, average 20 and 12 with 2.5 blocks a game. Like, physically, like, his body transformation is nuts. He's done a very, very good job of strengthening his core. He's not dragging his legs around. He's got a very good idea of what he's supposed to do. And I think what they're going to do with Stockton is they're going to use him in the same way that they use Sabonis. They're going to run the ball through him a ton. They're going to let him be a playmaker and a passer for his teammates, and that's going to make him so incredibly valuable when he gets done with this season. Like, the good folks in Portugal, don't get upset that he's not playing with the Kings. There will be a time where he plays, and all of this time that he's getting right now, this is just PhD level learning that he's doing, and they're trying to get him as much run. You also you noted Chima Moneke is gonna be at G League training camp. He's just waiting for his time. It seems like, again, Mike Brown is really worried about getting everything sort of figured out with what he's doing with the main 8 or 9 guys. But there'll be a point where Chima gets some run with Sacramento Kings, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think right now in this early going is when they're tinkering. This is the best thing for Chima, because it's a continuation of training camp that he's already had. It's a guy, he didn't play Summer League, so I want to make sure people remember that Chima Moneke was not on a Summer League roster. So it's keep him active, keep him going, learning the nuances of a Mike Brown system and the NBA system. He already knows Mike Brown, but again, there's a difference between the NBA and FIBA and international play. It's different styles of basketball. So there are things that come along with that, and him being in this training camp will be good. I also think it helps if you look at their roster. They don't have a lot of guards on the Stockton Kings roster for some reason.
They got DJ.
They do. If you look like top to bottom, though, it's just a whole bunch of forwards. And Chima is a forward, but he can also,
defend
with the positionless basketball, you can do whatever you need. So I think it'll be fun. We talked about it here. Like, he can make the roster and still be assigned to the G League and still play a couple games down there. I hope that's the case if he's not playing, because I think Stockton Kings are going to be kind of drawing a lot of fans this year. I mean, they really will. They haven't drawn a lot in years past, but this is a year where you've got some legit talent going through there that can be called up at any moment. No slide on previous seasons, but and I like some of the local angles too. You got Jordan Ford, Christian Terrell, guys that played high school in this area. So it's fun to see them grow and go to the next level. You might see one of these guys, be another Gabe Vincent type player, a feel good story that comes along. And don't sleep on DJ Stewart, man. They're gonna. I'm not just hyping up a Duke guy here. Like, they're pretty high on this guy, and I think they're thinking some big things for him. And it's just really unfortunate that hamstring injury that he had in the summer league kind of prevented him from getting an opportunity somewhere.
Kings legend Sam Merrill went number 1 overall in the G League draft.
Kings legend.
Yeah, I thought Kings legend Sam Merrill. I thought he would be top 5. I was surprised he was number 1, but not really. Like his elite skill is shooting, and I would be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if the Kings like try to make a big trade to get him, so they have him in their system.
Big trade.
Maybe not. Well, a big G League trade.
Define big trade.
That would be a big G League trade, though, like to go get Sam Merrill. But those things are, who knows? Who knows what will happen? Let's get to the business of basketball. Okay. Before we get to I'm just going to like alert people now. Once we get done with the business of basketball, we're going to take questions. We'll take questions for about 10 minutes if you guys have got it. So start filling up the chat here. We got a ton of people in here still. Like it's so, and you guys have been great. We've been engaging. We've been watching your comments and stuff. So make sure that you are throwing some questions at us right now.
We could have been more engaging.
Yeah, I guess we could have dug in there a little bit more, but
no, I'm just trying to be that dickhead that like disagrees with you again.
There's twice. Everything. There's twice he said the word dick.
It is good.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
Not gonna get one out of me.
Yeah, we're not gonna get one out of you. All right.
That's too bad.
Let's go with this. Brenden, when are the Kings gonna get off to Schneid? What's your guess here? Like, how long is it going to take for them to get a win? And where is the level of panic, or where do you think it should be? Even if they don't, again, they've got Memphis on Thursday. They've got the Heat on Saturday. Like, it doesn't really get that much easier.
The one game they should win.
Should. You said it, Sean.
Keyword should. Is the game in Charlotte. That takes place after the Memphis game, after the Miami game. But I think that they could win any of these games. Like, I think the team is good enough that I could see them winning a game on any given night. I think Memphis and Miami should be decently favored in those games. Understandably, those are some of the best teams in the league that we're talking about last year when it comes to record-wise. Like, I think it's important to keep in mind the Clippers, Warriors. I know we mentioned it before in this episode, but that those are two teams that a lot of people, it feels like most people are picking as their 1 and 2 in the West. Like, Memphis was, I believe, a home court team first round last year. Miami was one of the top teams in the East last year. Like, they're playing really, really good teams at the start of this year. So I'm not overly concerned by what we've seen so far. I think there have been good trends and good things to take and reasons to feel like they're trending in the right direction, and just reasons for optimism. It doesn't feel like I think De'Aaron said after the Clippers game, it's not like the fact that they're losing. It's not as blunt as that. It's kind of the way that they're losing. And they've been close in all of these games, minus that Warriors one. I'm not going to count that as close, to be honest. But I thought those first 2 games, they were competitive. And it's just about putting together 4 quarters, really, because we've seen a handful of really solid quarters from them.
Yeah, like we started by saying this. I don't think their problems are that bad. I just think they've ran into some really good competition. And yeah, I would have had them 1 and 2. I think the way they've been playing encourages me that I think that they'll get one of these next 2, be it Memphis or Miami. I'm kind of with you, Brenden. I think the Charlotte, even though they've had some moments already, I think that's a team that they might circle on their calendar, but that always makes me a little nervous, especially if they're looking at opponents that they should beat. So I'm not really wild about that, but I just feel like the way that they're playing should lead to a win against possibly a Memphis or a Miami. But I know Almir said it in there, you can't go 0-5. It's like, sure you can. Like, of course you can. Like, that would be very Kings to go 0-5 and then turn it around at some point. Or my concern though is, will you ever have a winning record? Not to finish the season, that's not what I'm saying, but at any point in the season, like at any point, will you catch up to the deficit? And that to me is a little bit more of the conversation than it is whether or not when they'll get their win, because they'll find it, they'll get it. It's just being able to sustain and
they'll win a game eventually.
The first 10 games of the season are rough.
I think it's harder to find where the Lakers will find their that's boy.
They'll find it when they trade Russ.
Yeah.
Do you think so? Yeah, but what are you getting? What are you doing?
They don't care.
Who's lining up to take Russell Westbrook right now?
People are lining up to take 2 unprotected first-round picks way in the future.
I'll tell you who I'm lining up trying to trade for right now. I don't know what it would. I'm probably at this point I'm giving up a first-round pick. I'm trying to get Lauri Markkanen out of Utah. I mean, he's not going to help your defense, but my goodness.
Well, Danny Ainge is probably going to trade everybody the way they're playing. He's not trying to win.
I know. That's what it was funny. Like, I know Zach Harper tweeted out the best way for Danny Ainge to really tank is probably just to swap rosters with Sacramento Kings. It wasn't very nice, but yeah. Okay, so I'm going to make the bold prediction because I asked the question originally. The Sacramento Kings will split the next 2 games, and I think they will win 2 of the next 3. So
2 of the next 3.
I think they'll pick up that Charlotte win, like you guys have mentioned, like as kind of circled as the one game that you got a shot. And don't they have Orlando stuff tucked in there too coming up?
They do. Memphis, Miami, and then the road trip is Charlotte, Miami, Orlando, Golden State.
Oh yeah,
first game of a road trip can be
Yeah,
I'm actually looking at it in terms of how Kings fans would react. Watch them beat Miami or Memphis and lose to Charlotte, and then they're just going to really pull their hair out. Like that's just going to really piss them off.
That's going full Kings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely like when I'm looking at the schedule, you just have to throw it out the window and hope for the best. Orlando, while Paolo has been incredible, they haven't won. They're not a team that's looking like they're taking off like they thought they would.
So Kings fall in that game by 3 points.
Yeah, see, that's where it is. Yeah. Well, that's a game where you might need to like shake the rust off of KZ Okpala if he hasn't played much and get him out there. Meg, don't ever say something like that, Meg. Don't.
I mean,
stop it,
speak that into. Don't speak that into an existence. And
no,
Sean,
it is funny because
do not go Kenny Caraway on me here. Do not go.
It is funny because I've literally tried to envision Russell Westbrook on other teams and like a team that would embrace him and play the quote unquote right way to have Russell Westbrook, which I guess that varies from person to person, but yeah, not shooting the ball and just relying on playmaking ability and getting to the hoop and all that stuff. But like I still
if that's
feel like
all he did, I think a lot of teams would say, yeah, we'll take him. But the fact that he keeps shooting.
Right. The shooting he's going to shoot his way out of a paper bag right now. It's that pull up. I love I think it was Bleacher Report that put them side by side where it's, if you were watching on your phone, where it's like on the top screen, it was ISO'd on LeBron and AD, and on the bottom screen, it was in sync with him. And as he took the shot and they're both open, he just quick shoots that ball. What the hell was that? I mean, and then both of them, I mean, he almost gave him the J.R. Smith, LeBron did with the, like, what were you doing?
I was there for that game.
But I will say this. I'm not trying to find a role for Russell Westbrook on the Kings. That being said, and again, I'm not trading for him. I'm not. Look at Brendan's face.
Yeah,
Brendan,
whoa, where the hell is this going?
The one, there is a little bit of part of me that would really love to see him with Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox idolized the guy. Like that's like his guy to a degree. And
it was when he was young.
And like, if you're going to have Russell Westbrook, you should have someone that's really fast. And you should have someone you can move who's also capable of moving the ball, like with Sabonis. Have a nice big man like Sabonis. I'm not saying the Kings are doing it, and I'm not saying I would do it. I'm just saying there's a part of me that would kind of want to see it, and just because. And you know what? I like chaos, so I'm not saying do it, but I do like chaos. So.
Bring on the chaos. Let's get to a question. We've got one. It's this is from George.
I'm Brendan trying to get his head. Sorry for the listener on the audio portion, but if you are watching on YouTube, Brendan is trying to keep his head above the question like a kid trying to not drown in a pool.
All we see is Brendan's eyebrows and his forehead. I'm more concerned about the mindset of players rather than the losses on paper, because some of these teams are really good teams and we're pushing them to the end. Are you guys the same? Brendan, now that you're back on the screen, you and Jemias are back. What do you think?
I mean, I'm not concerned with the mindset that we've seen. I think there's just like an adjustment period. I actually thought the mindset has been pretty good for these guys. I think that I'm very bought into what Mike Brown is selling, and it feels like a lot of the team is as well. And I think there's just an adjustment period. It's a lot of new players. It's a whole new coaching staff. And I think they're playing really damn good teams to start the year. I do really like Sean's point of when you're looking at definitely hate
not
that
point.
One.
Okay. Yeah,
but I like your point of like when you're looking at Portland or you're looking at Charlotte and the Kings are circling those games, the other teams are doing the same for the Kings, which makes it an interesting night in most of these matchups, I feel like. So there's no easy nights in the league, and they're going to have to win some games that maybe they shouldn't, and they're going to lose some games that they probably shouldn't. But I don't feel like the mindset has been anything concerning to me.
I'm just going to flash this one up there. Go get Jay Crowder, ? With the way that we're seeing Harrison Barnes, like whatever's happening there, Jay Crowder is a guy who knows his role, plays defense, will shoot the 3-ball, rebounds a little bit. Is that something you guys would revisit, especially if it maybe came with a future pick or something?
It's not coming with a future pick. I mean, you think?
Well, Harrison Barnes, the beginning of the season, Harrison Barnes. Yeah,
maybe
know.
But no, I also don't like the idea of giving the Suns Harrison Barnes necessarily. But yeah, I like Jay Crowder. I do.
Okay. I think Harrison Barnes is an amazing basketball player, so you should probably just stick around.
Okay. You're gonna buy a jersey tomorrow, aren't you?
Yeah. No, Harrison Barnes is an amazing person, and he's really good at basketball, and
he's gonna bring Harrison Barnes a box of cookies, like the good ones from that one cookie store that's really good. Oh, Insomnia cookies we got downtown.
What does Megan mean? What does half shrouded mean?
Where
I'm always
was
half shrouded in the chat. I can't speak right now. Hector thought I was several Modelo's deep, but I'm not. I'm actually going to be in about not Modelo though. I'm gonna go hit up the town tonight.
What were your takeaways from Stockton Media Day, Sean?
If you've ever been to you got your first taste of Kings Media Day this year, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine Kings Media Day, but with like 6 stations. It's kind of empty. It was not a lot of media, and it was look, I like it because it helps with rapport with players. I get to know some of these guys a little bit more. A lot of them I know. I mean, I've covered guys in high school, covered guys all over the place, just familiar sites. Getting to finally chat with Bobby. I hadn't chatted with Bobby since the summer.
It's been a while.
That was a good thing.
Yeah.
It was also, I know this is Damian Barling's favorite topic, but when you go out to the Arco Arena site, it was my first time being out there since the building was rubble, and I don't care how much you get used to it. It's always just a little bit of like, oh shit, look at that, like that was weird. So then being back in that building, which is even the practice facility, I spent a lot of time in that practice facility, cutting my journalism teeth. For a long time, so that's always fun to be back in there. And the takeaway with the team, Keon Ellis, your boy, Keon Ellis, Brenden, I know you love Keon, gonna change his twist color probably one more time. He's debating on the color he's gonna go with.
He's not going purple?
He might. I think the purple tends to fade a little bit quickly. I'm not sure, but because I couldn't tell if it had gone purple at one point and it's just not there, or maybe the blue was if he had it mixed with blue. Anyway, that's what everyone wants to know. I think they're both really looking forward to playing at Stockton because it's going to be a pathway to Sacramento or an NBA team if they play well. And with the way the two-way stuff works, I think they are both going in with a ton of confidence. And you can tell with Keita, like I think you guys got a good portion of this in the summer with Summer League, but Keita's confidence is off the charts. Like it's a different player than
he's
what we
ready.
Talked to.
Yeah.
He's see, I only pause a little bit on that. Yes, I'd love to see him in. I don't know if he's ready for the NBA yet, if that makes sense. I just feel like it's the natural progression to play a lot of games with Stockton and see what that looks like. You need to go out there and dominate. You don't have to score a ton. I think he will. But I just need to see the defense, the rebounding, the block shots, be a force, stay healthy. And if you do that, then yes, it's a golden path to the Kings. And then, like I said, hopefully we see him play some meaningful minutes or some situational run here with the Kings. So I think that will be great. Keon, on the other hand, if he can duplicate what he did with Summer, I feel like he already can pinpoint being a factor either later this year or more likely next year with this team, because they're still very, very high on what he was able to accomplish. They love his defense. That corner three, man, is like almost automatic with him, so there's a lot of things that are going to be challenged. I spent time talking to Bobby about just, they want the continuity between the Kings and Stockton as well. And you go from somebody like Luke Walton and even Alvin Gentry and to have that continuity, and then all of a sudden you have to pivot. Now, remind you, this is Bobby's second year with Stockton Kings, and he's got to take Mike Brown's detailed philosophy and apply it here in Stockton. And I think Bobby takes to that like a fish to water. Like, I think he's really, really excited about implementing some of that and having his players have the familiarity there. But the biggest thing for him is like he always had to. If you go to watch a G League game, it is different. Like, your timeouts are literally 30 seconds. You don't get the minute 30 or whatever it is on the NBA level. So there are some quirks. So I'm going to be down there several times. So I think people are, if you have curiosity about some of these players, check them out. And so I know someone had brought it up on the chat earlier about what do players think about playing in Stockton. First of all, they're all based in Sacramento. None of them really spend much time in Stockton. So
they use a practice facility from Arco people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. And they have a very close relationship with the organization on the NBA level, and they just play the games in Stockton. Really, I think they do some community things throughout the year, but their training camp is really only about a week long. It's going to be done, I think, or maybe it's 2 weeks. Let me just double check. A little over a week long. So yeah, because it ends on the 2nd, and then they start getting into some sort of preseason. I forget when the things tip off, but it's a long-winded way to say there's a lot of really cool, interesting talent on the team and some interesting personalities. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch.
I think so too. Let's do some speed round. Boise, I don't even know why I'm going to put this up here, but the answer is no. The Kings should never trade a top 2 protected pick and a player for Jared Vanderbilt.
Oh, God.
At this point, they're 0-3. I mean, not that I think that's the way this season's going, but like, you don't trade this pick at all you can't, because you've already, like, you cannot physically trade your pick this year because of the herder. You can't because of the herder deal.
Right.
So yeah, because of Stepien rule, you cannot trade it. But I wouldn't trade that pick. Like, I'd have a tough time trading that pick right now for like Evan Mobley. Like, if you fall apart this year and you could get a guy who will make you in like an NBA contender for a decade, you're not trading that pick. No one is trading their 2023 NBA first round pick. Meg, Brenden, I know it's covering your face. Chima is a rim protector and also met. Do you think that they get run if the Kings keep jacking up paint protection? I'm asking you this, Brenden, because you really got into like the defensive ideology of Mike Brown and his staff, and like a rim protector is one thing, but the key is to not allow people to get anywhere near the rim. So go ahead.
Yeah, I think Chima has some good switchability. I think you've pointed out to me, James, that like anytime Mike is saying good things about KZ, he's kind of grouping in Chima with it as well as another guy that's really versatile on that end and has some potential. So I'd like to see him get an opportunity here and there, and I'd imagine that'll happen. I think one of the interesting things that makes a lot of sense to me, but Mike Brown has pointed out in these weeks kind of leading up to this, was that guys are going to play every once in a while, even just to keep them engaged. It keeps them focused throughout the course of practices. You know that you're going to get opportunity here and there, and you want to try some guys like we saw Metu last night, and that ended up going well for them. I think that Chima will get his opportunities, and I think, honestly, it's probably not going to be the prettiest at first. I think there's just going to be an adjustment between what he's used to dealing with overseas through different leagues compared to what the speed of the NBA is. A guy especially that you're expecting to kind of just get his buckets within the flow of the offense and then be a difference maker on the defensive end. I think it's going to be an adjustment, but I think that there's definitely things to be interested with when it comes to Chima, and I'd like to see him get a chance.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they manage the back end of their bench, because I think we're seeing a lot of bodies kind of like coming in and out of the lineup. And I also think that they have not yet showed you what they can do defensively, especially paint, how they'll defend the paint. Keep in mind the Warriors were a marginal shot blocking team last year. They had no true shot blocker, and they were number 2 in the league in defensive rating. So Mike Brown knows how to coach without needing a Hassan Whiteside type player in the paint. Okay, that's going to do it for this edition of the King Speed Podcast. We've been going for like an hour and 40 minutes. I know Sean's got to go. He's got to go get out and paint the town, Sean.
On a Monday.
And Sean, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I was curious to see if Brenden had saw Silence of the Lambs yet. Did he not? Probably not.
I did not.
He puts
homework assignment was due, buddy. You let us down.
He puts the lotion on his skin. Come on, Brenden. I might watch that tonight. Yeah. Okay, Brenden, do you have any final thoughts?
I feel really bad about the HP stuff.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
My final thoughts, by the way, was really margarita or Jameson ginger beer.
We're gonna have media day tomorrow. Margarita sounds good.
Media day? What are you talking about?
Not media. We're gonna have practice. Yeah, we're gonna have media availability.
Practice.
Yeah.
I can show up to a practice. Never mind. I'm not gonna say that out loud.
Not a game. Not a game.
I'll be just fine. Not a game. Not a game.
All right, Brenden. What do you got? Brenden, final thoughts?
I just feel bad about the HB stuff. That's really
no really take backs.
No, I stand.
You wrote it on the paper.
I stand by what I said. He's looked bad, and I'm scared that he could be washed. I am not saying that he is. I very much could be wrong. I hope that I'm wrong. We've seen HB have his up and downs, so we'll see. But I feel bad.
I too am just concerned that I don't understand why he looks the way he does on the court, because that's not the player I've become accustomed to, or the player that I think that he is. So I think it's very odd what we're watching, and it's something, like you said, to keep an eye on. Okay, final thoughts. I saw Black Adam. Interesting.
Oh no, that's the comic book thing.
The Rock, as a
okay.
superhero.
Wayne Johnson, James.
Yeah. Interesting. It was pretty good. I mean, I like to go see the superhero movies. Outside of that, don't freak out. It's gonna be okay. The Kings will figure it out. They'll figure out a way to win some games, and I just want to make sure that people know that they're 0-3, but at best I expected 1-2 at best, and then you go from there. Even if you look at the first 4 games, if you thought that they would go better than 1-4, I think you were like a little pie in the sky. They still have an opportunity. They still have 2 shots to bump the record up to 1-4 to finish this. So yeah, I don't think it's time to panic. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the King Speed Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sticking around. If you're still here and you haven't already, please give us a thumbs up. That would be very nice. And
Brenden can apologize again. That's not too late.
It's not too late.
Could be listening.
He's going to have to bring some flowers tomorrow or something. We might have to make a T-shirt out of this.
Nothing more to be said. I feel bad.
Oh, no. Don't hashtag that. Don't hashtag that. All right.
Brendy Bear thing. I forget.
Brendy Bear Barnes washer.
Thank God we fit that one in.
Yeah. All right.
You don't like that nickname, do you? Who
Am I supposed? You think I? Yeah.
Okay,
Anyways,
so
I think we're wrapping it up.
We're wrapping it up. So just real quick, we're going to try to do this once a week. If it works out, we'll do it. If not, it's just about the schedule and certainly Sean's schedule, like trying to juggle everything that he does. So we like doing the live shows. It's a lot of fun. They do great numbers. We're very excited about how we're growing here. So thanks for sticking with us. Make sure to jump on board with the premium subscription to the Kings Beat so Brenden and I can go to more road games this season. And, hopefully we see a win here in the next couple of days. So for Fox 40, Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. I'm James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. See you later this week.